Wakehurst Place near Haywards Heath, with its Elizabethan mansion and 180 acres of country estate, is also known as Kew's Country Garden. This outstanding botanical garden has since 2000 also housed the world's largest seed conservation project, the Millennium Seed Bank.
The Millennium Seed Bank project was set up, and this facility was built because there was nothing like it in the world. Although there are many seed banks, around 1,400, they deal with agricultural species, with crops. And it was our concern that there was no seed bank for other species, for all of the wild species which are useful to people and which are disappearing from this planet. The Millennium Seed Bank was opened by His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales in the autumn of 2000. And it was good to have him doing it because, of course, this is very close to his heart. He's concerned with us losing much of our botanical heritage.
Here we have a selection of some of the fruits that come into the seed bank. You can see they're very varied. A lot of the plants are designed with their dispersal in mind, and some of these give a good example of that. We have here, for example, the Proboscidea from New Mexico, and you can see by its shape that you would think it's designed to cling on to something for its dispersal. The hooks are hopefully will clip onto the back of livestock legs and be dragged around the countryside as the seeds are slowly dispersed from the central portion.
When a seed consignment arrives, we unpack it, we check all the seed collections that are in the box and make sure that they match the paperwork and the permits we have for their importation. And in this bag we have a Proboscidea, a devil's claw, which has been partly processed by our partners. You can see they've cut the hooks off the ends but left the seeds inside the fruits. So what we'll do when we come to process this is we will break the capsule open and extract the seeds. Once we've checked the collections in and we're happy with them, we put them into crates and we take them into our dry room where they sit for between 3 and 6 months to make sure they're dry enough to process, and then we bring them back out into the cleaning lab here where we process them.
We do a lot of collecting in other countries, but what we tend to do is not do the collecting ourselves. We employ seed collectors within partner institutions in country. The reason for that is that they know the species much better than we do, and they know the geography as well. They're able to get out to the places that we need to go.
This is one of the main pieces of equipment we use when we clean the seeds prior to storage. It's called an aspirator. It works on the principle of a winnowing machine. We have a hopper here into which we put our unclean seeds, and in the back of the machine there's a motor which introduces a column of air. It comes up here and over the top.
Once we've cleaned the seed collection, we need to assess the quality of it. So we remove a sample from each of the collections that arrives here, and it may be 20 or 50 seeds, and we x-ray them using this machine. This is a sample taken from an Adenia species from Tanzania. As you can see, there are 2 seeds here which look distinctly different from the rest of the collection. These 2 here don't have any density to them, and they will be classified as empty. The rest of the seeds look perfectly healthy, The way that we check whether a seed is viable or not is we do a germination test at a later date after the seeds have been in the minus 20 degrees C conditions.
Gordon Brown banked the billionth seed, which was a bamboo from Africa, in April 2006, and that took place at 11 Downing Street. It was just a few months before he moved next door.
Over the history of this house, you'll think there have been very many important events happening, but there can be nothing more important than discussing the future of our environment, the conservation, the sustainability of it, and the equity to the different countries and peoples of the world. And so when we look back a few years from now on this event today, I think we'll regard it as one of the most important things that have happened in the last decade.
Well, we have two enemies with this project. The first is time, because we don't have a lot of time, but the second is money, certainly. And there's a cost associated, obviously, with collecting, conserving and carrying out research on seed for any plant species. What we're concerned about is that, given the current financial situation, that we won't be able to find money to make further collections. There's no possibility of the seed bank closing. We will continue to maintain the collections that we have, but we need to be making new collections and finding more species out there which are on the brink of extinction.
Once the collections are fully dried, we transfer them into containers, bottles like this, ready to go into the minus 20, the seed bank itself. Rachel is just preparing the labels. The computer will give each collection a location number in the bank, so we know exactly where to find it when we go into the cold room.
The reason it's important to keep seeds is because we are likely to need them, and we need to give ourselves every opportunity to use new plant species, to find out more about those that we already use, and keeping them as seed is the most efficient, cost-effective way of holding plant species. 30 years ago, we didn't know that the Madagascar periwinkle would be important in curing childhood leukemia. Now we do. That's the reason that we try to collect plants that have no known use currently. The Seed Bank project has been a great success so far. We have around 96% of the UK flora in the bank, the only country in the world to have anything like that proportion of its flora in a seed bank, and we're after a few of the stragglers. But for the world target of 10%, we're absolutely on track to deliver that. We will deliver it on time and under budget this year.
Each collection is divided between active and base. The base fraction stays in the cold room the whole time, and the active fraction comes in and out as we use seeds for germination testing or seed distribution.
One of the problems in dealing with the seeds of wild plants is that very often they're programmed so that they'll only germinate at a very particular time in nature. And perhaps the most important factor which determines the timing of germination is temperature. If we try to germinate those seeds at constant temperatures, they can't germinate. And we think that this requirement for the seeds to experience both daytime and nighttime temperature serves as a kind of depth sensing mechanism which tells seeds in the wild that they're close to the soil surface. So you'll see that there are a number of germination tests in this incubator at the moment, and if I take one of them out and just show you, you can see that in most cases we tend to sow seeds in petri dishes on a medium called agar, and this is essentially just like jellied water.
I'm here scoring an initial germination test that has been set up for me previously. This is the third week it's been scored. It's scored every 7 days, and the main aim is to check if anything has germinated, which in this case it has. So in this case I will remove the seedling and to score that the germination has occurred.
Earlier we were looking at the temperature controlled incubators that we use for germination testing. And here again we use temperature controlled incubators for these aging studies, but not at those cooler temperatures we saw earlier. This is running at 45 degrees centigrade, and that's the kind of temperature that we need to make seeds lose viability quickly. And by running those experiments on a range of species, we can begin to understand their comparative longevity. Okay, so if we look inside this incubator where we have some experiments running, you can see that we conduct the experiments in these sealed boxes. And the reason for that is that as well as controlling the temperature to 45 degrees centigrade, we also have to control the relative humidity. And we do that by holding samples of seeds above a solution of a chemical called lithium chloride, which controls the relative humidity inside that box to exactly 60%. So it's the combination of the temperature of 45 and the humidity at 60% that causes the seeds to age so quickly. And we can contrast that with the conditions that we use in our seed bank, where seeds are dried down to 15% relative humidity and stored at -20. And it's those very dry and very cold conditions which make seeds survive for so long in the seed bank, and these warm, humid conditions which causes seeds to die much more quickly. I'm just going to close the incubator so that we can maintain the conditions inside, not to disturb the experiment. We've now done these comparative aging experiments on over 200 species from a huge variety of plant families and from plants from all over the world. And this has now built up an excellent picture of the variation in longevity across these different plant species. And what we've learned is that seeds that have tiny embryos from cool, moist regions of the world tend to be much shorter lived than seeds that have big embryos that come from warmer, drier climates. And this vital information is now enabling us to better manage our collections, identify those species that we need to manage more carefully.
The seeds are already reintroduced into their country of origin. We're already doing it in places like Australia. What's going to be much more difficult is going to be reintroducing many species to recreate habitats. And habitat restoration, I feel, is likely to become an increasingly important technology as we go forward. And it's something that we really need to learn how to do.
This is a very special plant that we're growing for regeneration. It is a Cylindrophyllum hallei, and it's endemic to southern Africa, where it is virtually extinct. Eventually, if conditions can be right for them in southern Africa once again, if their habitat can be restored, then the seeds can be used that were stored in the seed bank to put back into the wild.
The work of the Millennium Seed Bank is a race against time because we know that we are losing plant species. It's very hard to prove that a plant has become extinct because you have to search every square yard of ground to prove that that's the case. But the estimates are that extinction is happening at about 100 times the background rate the fossil record indicates, and also that as many as 4 species of plant a day are becoming extinct. So we have to get a move on with this. We can't afford to fool around. We need to get on and collect those species while we still have the chance.
Seeds bring life. Seeds give life. Seeds for life. Hakuna Matata.